He had wealth beyond imagination, power, fame, everything money could buy. Yet every night, the silence of his mansion screamed louder than his success. When his wife died giving birth to their daughter, the billionaire's world collapsed. He couldn't hold the baby, couldn't look into her eyes, because every glance reminded him of the love he'd lost. Then one night, a young nanny walked into his life, and with a single whisper, she said the words no one else dared to say, words that shattered his pride, broke his heart wide open, and changed everything forever. This isn't just a story about loss. It's a story about courage, redemption, and the moment one broken soul saved another. The rain outside had been falling since midnight, soft but endless, painting the world in shades of gray. Inside a large suburban house on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon, the silence was broken only by the desperate cries of a baby. Ryan Cooper sat at the edge of his bed, shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot, rocking his 3-month-old daughter in trembling arms. The small bundle in his hands, Emma, screamed as if her tiny lungs were trying to pull her mother back from wherever she'd gone. He tried to whisper, to hum, to do anything that could calm her. Nothing worked. His hands shook so badly that the bottle nearly slipped from his grasp. He hadn't eaten since yesterday. He hadn't really slept in weeks. And in the deepest corner of his mind, the same thought kept whispering, I can't do this. I don't know how. 3 months ago, Ryan had been one of Portland's most admired real estate developers, a man whose name meant success, ambition, confidence. But that was before the night in the hospital when Emily, his wife, his reason for everything, never came back. He could still see it, the sterile light, the sudden panic, the alarm tones echoing through the maternity ward. 1 second she was laughing, sweating, promising him they'd name the baby Emma Grace. The next, there was blood. Then chaos, then silence. The doctors told him they tried everything, but the hemorrhage had been too severe. Emily was gone before she even heard her daughter's first cry. Ryan hadn't held Emma once since that night. Not until now. Every time he saw her face, his heart cracked open again. Those same hazel eyes, the same gentle mouth. It was like holding a mirror of everything he'd lost. He stared at her now, tears stinging his eyes. Please, he whispered. Please stop crying. I don't know what to do. The room felt like a tomb, cold air, dim lamplight, a faint smell of whiskey and baby powder. On the dresser were pictures of Emily, smiling, laughing, pregnant, alive. Ryan turned his face away. He couldn't look at them anymore. Down the hall, Claire, Emily's mother, stirred from sleep. She was in her early 60s, grey hair tied in a bun, her body carrying the exhaustion of 2 kinds of grief, losing a daughter and watching her son-in-law drown in silence. She had moved into the house after Emily's funeral to help with the baby, but every corner of the home was still haunted by absence. Over the last few months, she'd hired 5 nannies. Each one left within days, claiming the house felt too heavy, until Olivia Reed answered the ad, 28 years old, once a preschool teacher in Kansas City. The pandemic had closed the school. Her mother was ill, and medical bills were swallowing every penny. When she saw the job posting, live-in nanny needed, competitive pay, immediate start, she hesitated for exactly 1 heartbeat before sending her resume. By the time she arrived at the Cooper residence, the sky was a pale grey, and the driveway glistened with drizzle. Claire opened the door with a tired smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Come in, dear," she said softly. This house could use some warmth. Olivia's first impression was of space, too much of it. The ceilings were high, the marble floors spotless, but there was no sound. Even the walls seemed to grieve. Claire led her upstairs to the nursery. "This is Emma," she said, her voice trembling on the baby's name. "She's a good child. Barely cries, but..." Her eyes shifted toward the hallway. "Her father, he's struggling. Please don't take it personally if he seems distant." Olivia simply nodded. "I understand." She walked toward the crib. The baby stirred, her small fists opening and closing as she blinked up at this new stranger. When Olivia lifted her, Emma didn't cry. She just looked. Wide-eyed, innocent, curious. "Hey there, little one," Olivia whispered, brushing a thumb over her soft cheek. "I'm here now. You're safe." For a brief moment, something in that quiet room felt lighter, like grief itself had paused to listen. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Olivia went downstairs to the kitchen for a glass of water. The house creaked softly, rain dripping against the windows. Passing the study, she noticed lights spilling through the half-closed door. Inside, Ryan sat behind a massive oak desk, his head buried in his hands. The glow of the computer screen lit the photographs surrounding him, Emily's face everywhere, her laugh frozen in silver frames. A bottle of whiskey sat half-empty beside him, a glass untouched. Olivia's breath caught. She didn't move. It wasn't pity she felt, it was recognition. That kind of pain had a shape, and she'd seen it before. She remembered her own father's death when she was 12. The way her mother had sat for days by the window, staring at nothing. The way she herself had learned that grief wasn't something you escaped. It was something you carried quietly until it softened enough to live with. Olivia didn't interrupt. She stepped away as silently as she had come. When she entered the nursery again, Emma was awake, looking up at the ceiling with the blank fascination of babies, discovering light and shadow. Olivia sat in the rocking chair, holding her close. "You're not alone," she murmured. "Not while I'm here." Emma's crying faded to small hiccups. Her eyelids fluttered closed, and for the first time in 3 long, grief-soaked months, the Cooper house found a fragile, tender peace, a lullaby breaking through the storm. The dawn that followed would be different, though no one yet knew it. Because love, even the quiet kind that begins in someone else's pain, always has a way of changing everything. The next morning arrived beneath a pale winter sun that never quite managed to warm the Oregon sky. Mist still hugged the pines surrounding the Cooper estate, and the smell of damp earth lingered in the air. Inside, for the first time in months, the house didn't feel completely lifeless. There was the faint sound of humming, Olivia's voice, soft, unsure, but human. Ryan had already left for work. He'd slipped out quietly before dawn, as he always did, avoiding the nursery hallway like a man avoiding the scene of a crime. His office downtown was filled with people who called him sir and respected him. But even there, behind glass walls and success, he was hollow. Every decision felt mechanical, every handshake empty. The world thought Ryan Cooper had conquered tragedy with discipline. Only he knew the truth. He was just running from it. Meanwhile, upstairs, Olivia was discovering a rhythm of her own. At 6 sharp, she was awake. She changed Emma's diaper, prepared the formula, and warmed a bottle while the baby kicked happily on a blanket spread across the nursery rug. She spoke to Emma constantly, nonsense words, little jokes, songs that her mother used to hum when she was small. The house had been quiet for too long, but now faint laughter, coos, and music drifted through the halls like sunlight sneaking through shutters. Claire noticed the difference immediately. When she walked into the nursery that morning, she found Olivia kneeling beside Emma's bassinet, making faces until the baby laughed. A clear, delighted sound that filled the room. Claire pressed a hand to her mouth, overcome. I haven't heard her laugh like that since. She stopped herself before finishing. Olivia turned, smiling gently. She's got her mother's laugh, hasn't she? Claire nodded, blinking away tears. Yes, exactly her mother's. As the days turned into weeks, the mansion in Portland began to shift in ways too subtle for visitors to notice, but unmistakable to those who lived there. The curtains were drawn open for the first time in months. The staff stopped whispering when they passed the nursery. The faint scent of lavender replaced the stale aroma of whiskey and dust. Olivia created a routine that wrapped itself around Emma's needs and unknowingly around Ryan's emptiness too. Each morning she walked Emma through the sprawling garden, talking about the flowers, the color of the sky, the tiny sparrows hopping along the stone path. She took photos and pinned them to the fridge, labeling them with little notes in colorful markers. First time seeing snowflakes, or discovered her toes today. Absolutely fascinated. Ryan never commented on those notes, but he noticed. Every night when he came home and poured himself a drink, his eyes would linger on the fridge a little longer. He wasn't blind to the changes. The house was warmer now. The baby's laughter echoed up the stairs. The shadows didn't feel as heavy. But instead of comfort, he felt guilt. Guilt that life was daring to go on without Emily. One evening, around 8 p.m., Olivia was finishing dinner in the kitchen when Claire entered. Moving slowly, her face pale. "You should go rest." "Mrs. Cooper," Olivia said softly. "It's Claire," the older woman corrected with a weak smile. "And I'm fine, dear. I just wanted to say thank you for what you've done here." Olivia frowned. "I'm just doing my job." "No," Claire said firmly. "You've done more than that. You've brought life back to this house. To Emma, even to me." She paused, her voice trembling. "Ryan can't see it yet, but he will. Sooner or later, he will." That night, as Olivia carried Emma upstairs after her bath, she noticed the faint light under the office door again. For a moment, she hesitated. Then something made her stop and listen. Inside, Ryan was speaking. His voice was hoarse, almost breaking. "I don't know how to do this without you, Em. I thought I could keep it together. For her, for our daughter. But every time I look at her, I see you. And I can't." The sound of glass clinking followed. Then silence. Olivia's throat tightened. She'd seen grief take many forms: rage, numbness, self-destruction. But this was the quiet kind, the kind that kills slowly. She wanted to say something, anything, but she didn't move. Some wounds had to bleed before they could heal. She went back to the nursery and sat with Emma. The baby was half asleep, fingers curled around Olivia's thumb. "You miss her too, don't you?" she whispered. "Your mom." The baby's lips twitched as if in response. Olivia smiled sadly. "You know what, little one? Sometimes life takes people away, so suddenly we forget how to breathe. But it always leaves someone else behind to help us learn again." It became her nightly ritual. Every evening, after the house had fallen silent, she'd sit by Emma's crib telling her stories about stars, about kindness, about strength. And though Emma was far too young to understand, she would always listen quietly, as if some part of her did. 3 weeks later, the first storm of January hit Portland. Thunder rolled through the valley. The windows rattled in their frames. Olivia was alone in the nursery with Emma when the power flickered out. The baby whimpered, frightened by the sudden darkness. Olivia pulled her close, rocking her softly. Singing an old lullaby her mother used to hum on stormy nights. "Hush now, little heart. The storm will fade, the rain will wash the fear away, the dawn will come, as it always does, and love will find its way." Downstairs, Ryan sat in his office, a glass of whiskey untouched on the desk. For some reason, he couldn't focus on the work in front of him. The faint sound of that lullaby floated through the halls, soft, soothing, almost unreal. He stood, walked to the foot of the staircase and stopped. The sound grew clearer. It wasn't Emily's voice. It could never be, but it carried the same tenderness, the same warmth he thought he'd never feel again. For a long time, he stood there listening, eyes closed, his hands trembling, not with grief this time, but with something else, something he hadn't felt in months: hope. The storm had passed by dawn, leaving the streets of Portland glistening under a silver sky. The air was sharp, heavy with the scent of rain and pine. The Cooper house, still damp with last night's thunder, felt quieter than usual, too quiet. At exactly 2:47 a.m., Olivia awoke to a sound that sent her heart racing. It wasn't the usual soft whimper of a baby needing her bottle. It was sharper, higher, almost like a cry of pain. She jumped from bed, bare feet hitting the cold floor, and rushed toward the nursery. When she turned on the light, her stomach clenched. Emma's tiny body was red with strain, her face twisted, her legs drawn tightly to her chest. "Oh no, sweetheart." "What's wrong?" Olivia whispered, scooping her up. She pressed her palm to the baby's stomach and felt the tension. "Cramps," she murmured. "Colic." She moved instinctively, massaging Emma's belly, pacing the floor, whispering gentle words between the cries. But nothing worked. 10 minutes passed. Then 20, 30. The crying only grew louder, more desperate. By now, Olivia's heart was pounding. She tried everything. Warm bottle, gentle rocking, lullabies. Still nothing. She looked toward the window, the reflection of her own worried face staring back. What if it's something worse? She thought, panic rising. Down the hall, she noticed a faint light under Ryan's office door. Of course, he was still awake. He was always awake, she hesitated. He hadn't once come near Emma in months. He barely spoke to her, unless it was about schedules or groceries. The last time she mentioned Emma's first smile, he just nodded and walked away. But now, she had no choice. Olivia tightened the blanket around Emma and hurried down the hall. Her pulse echoed in her ears. She stopped in front of the office door and knocked softly. Mr. Cooper. No answer. She knocked again, louder. From inside, a faint voice replied, "Come in." When she opened the door, she found Ryan sitting behind his mahogany desk, sleeves rolled up, eyes vacant. The soft blue light of the computer screen painted his face pale. In front of him, another empty whiskey glass, untouched. He looked up when Olivia stepped in. His eyes flicked from her face to the crying baby in her arms. For a second, his entire body froze. "I need your help," she said, her voice trembling. "She's been crying for almost an hour. I've tried everything, warm milk, massage, walking, but nothing's helping." Ryan's throat worked, but no sound came out. His hands twitched as if trying to reach forward, but then he leaned back again, shaking his head. I can't," he whispered. "Please, I can't." "Yes, you can," Olivia said firmly, stepping closer. "She's your daughter." Ryan's breath hitched. His face paled even more. "I don't know how." "I've never—" "Then learn," she interrupted, her voice breaking. "Please, Ryan, just hold her." He stood abruptly, but instead of coming forward, he backed away, his chest rising and falling like someone drowning. "If I look at her, I'll see Emily. I'll see—" Olivia's patience snapped. "She already lost her mother," she said, her voice sharp with emotion. "Don't make her lose her father, too." The words hit him like a gunshot. The air in the room seemed to vanish. For a long moment, Ryan didn't move. His eyes burned, his jaw clenched, his shoulders trembling. Olivia didn't speak. She just stepped closer, and before he could stop her, she gently placed the baby in his arms. Emma screamed louder at first. Ryan's arms went rigid, every muscle in his body tight. His eyes were wide, panicked. "Please," he whispered, "please take her." "No," Olivia said, resting her hand over his. "Don't let go. Just breathe. Look at her." "I can't," he said again, voice breaking. "If I look, I'll fall apart." "Then fall apart," she whispered. "It's time." The next sound was not Emma's crying. It was Ryan's, a choked, broken sound ripped from somewhere deep inside. Tears poured down his face as he finally looked at his daughter, really looked. He saw the small tremble of her lips, the way her tiny hand curled around the air as if reaching for something unseen. He saw Emily's eyes staring back at him, yes, but now they weren't haunting. They were pleading. "Shh," his voice cracked. "I'm here, sweetheart." "Daddy's here." Something shifted. The tension drained from his shoulders. His hands, once stiff, began to move gently, rocking, cradling, and then, miracle. Emma's crying slowed. Her breathing steadied. The tiny fists unclenched, her body softened, and before long, her eyes fluttered shut. Ryan stared in disbelief, tears falling freely now. "She stopped," he whispered, half laughing through his tears. "She stopped." Olivia smiled, wiping her own tears. "She just wanted her dad." He looked up at her, voice trembling. How did you know what to say?" Olivia hesitated. "Because I watched my mother lose my father. And I know what it does to a child to grow up watching grief instead of love." Ryan's lips parted, but no words came. The baby slept peacefully against his chest, her breath warm against his skin. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was soft, alive, filled with the sound of healing beginning. For the first time in months, the clock ticked, the air moved, and the house breathed. Ryan whispered into the stillness, "I'm so sorry, my love, for everything." And though Olivia didn't answer, she felt it too, that this was not the end of their grief. It was the first fragile step toward something new. Outside, the morning sun finally broke through the clouds. Its light fell through the window, landing on the three of them, father, daughter, and the woman who unknowingly became the bridge between loss and life. The next morning felt different. The house that had been a mausoleum for months seemed to breathe again. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, scattering over polished floors and white curtains that fluttered with a mild spring breeze. For the first time, the faint smell of baby lotion overpowered the scent of whiskey. Ryan sat in the nursery, his hair disheveled, still in yesterday's clothes, but there was a quiet peace in his face. Emma slept soundly in his arms, her cheek pressed against his chest. It was almost dawn. The pale light of early morning caught in his eyes, and for a fleeting moment the weight of loss felt lighter. Olivia stood in the doorway, unseen. She had woken up at the sound of silence, an unusual sound in this house. Her heart softened at the sight. The man who hadn't dared to touch his daughter for months now held her as if afraid she might vanish. When he finally noticed her, she smiled faintly. "You did it," she whispered. He looked down at Emma and then back at Olivia. "I didn't do anything." "She did." Olivia shook her head. "No, Ryan, you faced the hardest thing a person can face, your own fear." He didn't answer, but his throat tightened. He turned toward the window, staring at the dawn, his fingers tracing Emma's soft hair. Later that day, Claire found him in the living room, still holding the baby. She stopped in the doorway, her eyes widening. "Ryan," she said softly, "you're holding her." He looked up, almost sheepish. "Yeah, I guess I am." Claire pressed a trembling hand to her lips, tears pooling in her eyes. "Emily would be so proud of you." At the mention of his late wife's name, Ryan's smile faltered, but this time he didn't look away. "I hope so," he said quietly. Over the next few weeks the change was undeniable. Ryan no longer left before sunrise. He still worked, but now he returned home earlier. He would peek into the nursery before bed, sometimes staying long enough to watch Emma sleep. It started small. One morning, he greeted her with a soft, "Good morning, sweetheart." The next day, he changed her diaper with Olivia's guidance, awkwardly but determined. When he spilled baby powder all over his shirt, Olivia laughed for the first time in that house. The laughter startled him. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed the sound of joy. Day by day, he learned the language of fatherhood, the difference between Emma's cries, the way her breathing changed before sleep, the sparkle in her eyes when she saw his face. He began to see her, not as a reminder of Emily's death, but as the proof that Emily had once lived. One afternoon, Olivia walked by the nursery and froze. The door was open, sunlight spilling across the carpet. Ryan was sitting on the floor with Emma in his lap, singing softly, a broken tune, slightly off-key. It was a lullaby. It took Olivia a moment to recognize it. "You are my sunshine," the same song Emily used to sing when she was pregnant. Claire used to hum it too sometimes, when she thought no one was listening. Olivia leaned against the wall, arms folded, smiling through the tears forming in her eyes. Claire joined her silently. "He used to sing that to Emily when she couldn't sleep," she whispered. She said his voice made her feel safe. They watched him quietly until the song ended. That evening, Ryan came into the kitchen. Olivia was there rinsing bottles. He paused for a moment before speaking. "I don't think I ever said thank you." She looked up, her hands still under the water. "For what?" "For forcing me to face what I was too afraid to face," he said. "For helping me see her," Olivia smiled softly. "You didn't need me for that. You just needed a reason." His gaze lingered on her for a moment too long. The air shifted, subtle but undeniable. He nodded once and turned away. That night, something else began to stir, something neither of them was ready to admit. Over the next few weeks, Ryan started spending more time at home. He opened the blinds in his office, something he hadn't done since Emily's death. He stopped drinking at night, sometimes joining Olivia and Claire for dinner. He even laughed once, really laughed, when Emma sneezed so hard her pacifier flew across the table, but the laughter carried something else with it. Vulnerability. One evening, Olivia was in the living room folding baby clothes while Ryan fed Emma. The baby grabbed his nose and giggled, milk dribbling down her chin. Ryan laughed, a warm, genuine sound that filled the house. Olivia looked up. That laugh, it was the first time she'd seen him alive. Their eyes met, and for a moment the room went still. Neither spoke, neither needed to. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep, Ryan stayed in the nursery longer than usual. He tucked the blanket carefully around her and whispered, "Good night, my little miracle." When he turned to leave, Olivia was standing there in the doorway, holding a soft blanket she'd washed. She froze, embarrassed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," he smiled faintly. "You didn't." For a long moment they stood in silence, the faint hum of the baby monitor filling the space between them. "Do you ever think," Ryan asked suddenly, "that maybe people come into our lives exactly when we need them most?" Olivia hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think sometimes they're sent," Ryan's expression softened. "Yeah, maybe that's what you were." Olivia looked down, her cheeks flushing. "Good night, Mr. Cooper." "Ryan," he corrected gently. "Just Ryan," she nodded once quietly. "Good night, Ryan." After she left, he stood alone in the nursery for a long while, staring at the sleeping child in the crib. For the first time since Emily's death, he didn't feel haunted. He felt something else, something new. Not freedom, not joy, but the faint, trembling beginning of hope, and a love he didn't yet dare to name. It had been 4 months since Emily's death, and the Cooper house no longer felt like a place of mourning. The laughter of a baby now echoed through the halls. The windows stayed open, and every morning began with the smell of fresh coffee instead of whiskey. But with new life came new tension, an unspoken one. Ryan had begun to look at Olivia differently, not as the quiet nanny who had saved his daughter, but as the woman who had saved him. Every time she walked past with Emma in her arms, humming softly, something shifted inside him, a warmth that frightened him, and Olivia felt it too. She told herself it was admiration, respect, maybe gratitude. But late at night, when she caught herself thinking about his voice, or the way his tired eyes softened when he smiled, she knew it was something else, something dangerous. Still, neither said a word. One quiet Saturday evening, Ryan sat on the floor of the nursery, with Emma crawling between his knees, giggling at a stuffed elephant. Olivia leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, smiling. "She's getting faster every day," Ryan said, laughing when Emma grabbed his tie and refused to let go. "Strong grip," Olivia replied. "You're in trouble when she starts walking," he chuckled. "I'm already in trouble." Their eyes met. There was something in the way he looked at her, tired, grateful, but also alive. Olivia's heart skipped. She quickly looked away. "I'll get her bottle ready." But when she turned, Ryan's voice stopped her. "Olivia," she froze. "Yes?" "Thank you," he said softly, "for staying, for not giving up on us." Her lips parted, but no words came. She wanted to say, "You don't have to thank me," but her throat tightened. Instead, she smiled faintly and left. That night she lay awake in her small guest room, staring at the ceiling. Her chest ached in a way she hadn't felt in years. She was falling for him, hopelessly, quietly, painfully. And she knew she shouldn't. He was her employer. He was a man still grieving his wife. The next week things changed. Ryan was invited to a charity gala downtown, an event he and Emily used to host every spring to raise money for a children's hospital. He hadn't gone since she died, but this year the foundation personally requested his presence. Claire encouraged him. "It's time," she said gently. "Emily would want you to go." Reluctantly, Ryan agreed. The day before the event, he surprised Olivia with an invitation. "I'd like you to come with me," he said, standing in the doorway of the kitchen while she sterilized baby bottles. She blinked. "What? Oh no, I can't. I'm just the nanny." "You're more than that," he said firmly. "Your family now." Her heart raced. "People will talk." "Let them," he replied, with a quiet finality that silenced her. The night of the gala arrived cold and clear. The venue was a grand ballroom in downtown Portland, chandeliers glittering, waiters moving gracefully with silver trays. the air thick with perfume and murmured conversations. Olivia wore a simple black dress, her only one. She'd bought it years ago for a friend's wedding. Her hair was tied up, loose curls framing her face. When she descended the staircase, Ryan, standing in the foyer in a navy suit, stopped mid-step. "You look—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Beautiful," she blushed, looking away. "Thank you. You look like you belong at a magazine cover," he smiled. "You ready?" They drove through the glowing streets of Portland, the city lights flickering across their faces. The car was quiet, except for the soft hum of the heater. Olivia's hands were clenched on her lap. She could feel his gaze occasionally flick toward her, but she didn't meet it. When they arrived, the flash of cameras, the sea of glittering gowns, the whispers, they were immediate. People turned. They always turned. Ryan Cooper, the grieving widower, successful, stoic, was here. And beside him a young woman holding his daughter. The murmurs began instantly. "Is that the nanny?" "She's living with him, right?" That was quick. Olivia could feel the stares pressing into her skin like needles. She straightened her shoulders, but her stomach twisted. At their table, the polite smiles were knives wrapped in velvet. The wives of Ryan's business associates leaned in, their perfume suffocating. "So," one of them began, lips curling into a polite half-smile, "you must be Olivia. Ryan's new assistant?" "I'm Emma's nanny," Olivia said, forcing a smile. "Ah," the woman said, eyes gleaming. "How sweet. You must be very close to the family." Her tone made it clear what she meant. Ryan returned from greeting a colleague and noticed Olivia's clenched jaw. He sat beside her, placing a protective hand on Emma's tiny leg. "Everything okay?" "Fine," she murmured. But when he stood to give a short speech later that night, Olivia slipped away to the restroom, tears threatening. She leaned against the cold marble sink, breathing hard. The words of those women echoed in her head. He moved on fast. She took advantage. Poor Emily. Olivia bit her lip until it bled. She hated that they were right. Not about taking advantage, but about the guilt. She did care for Ryan, and that terrified her. She stayed there until she could breathe again. When she returned, she found Ryan scanning the crowd, worry etched on his face. When he saw her, relief flooded his expression. "You okay?" he asked softly. "Can we go home?" she whispered. He didn't ask why. He just nodded. The drive back was silent. Emma slept in her car seat, her little hand resting on her blanket. Olivia stared out the window, her reflection pale in the glass. When they reached home, she got out quickly, unbuckled Emma, and hurried inside. Ryan followed, confused and concerned. She laid the baby in her crib, covered her with the soft pink blanket, then turned and found Ryan standing in the doorway. "Olivia," he said quietly. "What happened?" She shook her head, tears finally spilling over. "Nothing, just people." "What did they say?" "It doesn't matter." "It does." His tone hardened. "Tell me." "They said I'm using you," she snapped suddenly. "That you're just lonely. That I'm replacing her." Ryan's face went pale. "That's not true." "But it looks true," she cried, her voice breaking. "To them, it looks like I'm the woman who stepped into another's life before she was even cold in the ground. And maybe they're right." "Stop," he said, stepping closer. "No, you stop." Olivia's hands trembled. "You still love her. You always will. And that's okay. But I can't be the shadow standing next to her memory. I can't be the woman everyone whispers about." She took a deep breath, her chest heaving. "I think I should leave." Ryan's voice cracked. "Don't." "I have to," she said, her voice soft but final. "You need time to heal, and I need to stop pretending this doesn't hurt." She turned and walked past him, her tears falling freely. That night, for the first time since he'd held his daughter again, Ryan sat alone in the dark. The sound of the rain against the window returned, steady and cruel. Upstairs, the room where Olivia slept was empty. Her suitcase was packed, her toothbrush gone, and when morning came, the house was silent again. Emma cried softly in her crib, her little voice echoing through the halls, calling a name that no one was there to answer. Dada. The following morning broke grey and cold. A thin mist hung over the Portland hills, turning every tree into a blur of silver shadows. Inside the Cooper house, silence reigned again, the kind of silence that wasn't peace but absence. Ryan woke to the sound of his daughter crying, sharp and insistent. Normally by this time, he'd hear Olivia's footsteps padding softly through the hallway, her gentle voice humming some tune to calm the baby. But that morning, there was nothing. His pulse quickened. He sat up, glanced at the clock, 6:37 a.m., and hurried toward the nursery. The door was closed. Olivia never closed the door. When he pushed it open, the cry hit him like a knife. Emma lay in her crib, her tiny fists clenched, her face red from screaming. He rushed to pick her up, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart, Daddy's here." But even as he spoke, his eyes darted around the room. Something felt wrong. The chair by the window was empty, the folded baby clothes stacked too neatly, the air missing that faint lavender scent that always followed Olivia. He looked toward the dresser. Her photo wasn't there. The coffee mug she always left beside the rocking chair, gone. Panic flooded him. He held Emma tighter, whispering, "No, no, no." He stepped into the hallway, calling out, "Olivia!" Then louder, "Olivia!" No answer. He checked her room. The bed was made perfectly, the closet empty. Her suitcase, her books, her favorite blue cardigan, all gone. On the nightstand sat a single white envelope with his name written in her careful handwriting. His hands shook as he opened it. "Ryan, I came here to help Emma find her father. Now she has one. If I stay, I'll only make things harder, for your reputation, for Emily's memory, for your peace. I love this house, this family, and this child more than I can explain. But I have to leave before love turns into something I can't undo. Take care of her. Take care of yourself." Olivia, he read it twice. Then again. The words blurred. He sank into the chair beside the bed, the letter shaking in his hand, Emma still crying against his chest. Claire found him there minutes later. Her eyes were already swollen. She held another letter addressed to her. "She's gone," Ryan whispered, his voice raw. Claire nodded slowly. "She said she was going home to Kansas. Her mother's not well." Ryan stood abruptly, clutching the letter. "Do you have the address?" "Ryan," Claire's voice cracked. "Let her go. Maybe she's right. Maybe it's too soon." He looked down at Emma, whose cries had softened to small hiccups. Too soon for who? For her? For me? His jaw trembled. "It's not too soon for my daughter. She's already calling her name in her sleep." Claire's eyes filled again. She stepped closer, touched his arm. "Then go," she whispered. "Go and bring her home." By noon, Ryan was already on the road, driving south out of Portland with the baby strapped safely in her seat behind him. The rain chased him down the highway, streaking across the windshield like ghosts trying to pull him back. He talked to Emma the whole way. "You miss her, don't you?" he said softly, glancing in the rearview mirror. "Me too," Emma gurgled, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "She thought leaving would make things easier," Ryan murmured. But it didn't. It just made the world empty again. 4 hours later, the green highway signs gave way to quiet two-lane roads bordered by open fields. The world slowed down. Small towns, diners with neon signs, gas stations that looked frozen in time. The GPS led him to a modest neighborhood where mailboxes leaned and front yards bloomed with wildflowers. Finally, he stopped in front of a small white house with a blue gate. The yard smelled of roses and fresh rain. His heart pounded as he got out, lifting Emma carefully. He rang the doorbell. A woman in her 60s opened the door, a kind face, eyes that mirrored Olivia's. She looked surprised, but not unkind. "Can I help you?" "Mrs. Reed?" Ryan asked, his voice low. "I'm Ryan Cooper. I need to see your daughter." Her expression softened instantly, a quiet sadness flickering in her gaze. "She told me you might come. She's inside, but she's not herself." She stepped aside. Ryan entered, holding Emma close. The house smelled like apple pie and old books. He heard a faint voice from the back room. When Olivia appeared in the hallway, she froze. Her eyes were swollen, her hair tied up messily, her sweater too big on her thin frame. For a long moment, neither spoke. Emma broke the silence. She stretched her little arms toward Olivia, babbling through a sob. "Dada!" "Dada," Olivia gasped, tears spilling instantly. She ran forward, scooping the baby into her arms. Emma buried her face against her chest. Sighing as if finally home, Ryan stood there, his throat too tight to speak. "She's been calling your name since you left," he said quietly. Olivia pressed her lips to Emma's forehead. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Ryan. Then why did you leave?" he asked, stepping closer. His voice trembled, but his eyes were steady. "You think walking away protects us? It doesn't. It just breaks us all over again." Her tears fell faster. "I couldn't stand what people were saying. That I replaced her. That I was using you. I didn't want you to wake up one day and regret me. I don't care what they say," Ryan said, his voice growing stronger. "They don't live in this house. They don't know what you've done for me, for her." He took a breath, his chest heaving. "You made me live again, Olivia. You brought me back from the edge. You didn't replace Emily. You helped me honor her by loving our daughter. You taught me that love doesn't die. It just changes shape." Olivia covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. He stepped closer, closing the last bit of distance between them. "I'll love Emily forever. She's part of me. But I also love you. You're the one who helped me see that the heart can hold more than one miracle at a time." She shook her head, whispering, "I'm scared." "So am I," he said. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." For a moment, time stood still. Then Emma reached up, placing a tiny hand on Olivia's cheek and murmured, "Mama." The word broke something open. Olivia's knees went weak. She laughed and cried all at once. Ryan stepped forward, wrapping them both in his arms. Mrs. Reed watched from the doorway, tears glistening. "Take care of my daughter," she said softly. Ryan nodded, voice trembling. "With my life." Months later, the Cooper home was unrecognizable. Sunlight poured through the open curtains, music drifted from the kitchen, and the scent of freshly baked bread filled the air. Claire had moved her room downstairs to make space for a new nursery, Olivia's dream project, filled with color, laughter, and tiny shoes scattered on the floor. Ryan and Olivia married quietly in the garden, with only family and close friends present. Claire walked Olivia down the aisle. There were tears, laughter, and the warm, bittersweet memory of Emily, whose picture rested on a chair beside them. Emma wore a white flower crown and toddled down the aisle, shouting, "Mama! Daddy!" to everyone she passed. And in that moment, even the wind seemed to pause, carrying the faint scent of lavender and roses, the scent that once lingered in Emily's favorite perfume, as if blessing what had begun anew. As years passed, life didn't become perfect, but it became whole. Ryan still visited Emily's grave every year, always bringing Emma and Olivia with him. They placed fresh flowers, told her stories about their days, and thanked her for the love that had made everything possible. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the rain returned, Ryan would hold Olivia close, watching their daughter play on the carpet and whisper, "She found us through you." Olivia would smile, her eyes glistening. "No, Ryan, she found you. I just helped you remember how to live again." Outside, the rain would fall the way it always did in Portland, soft, steady, endless. But inside the house there was laughter. The sound of life continuing, because love hadn't died in that home. It had simply learned how to begin again.